And welcome back to the Hot Lap after a very newsworthy qualifying session with quite a lot to talk about. Fairly exciting, fairly controversial. If you like to stay in between two white lines, look away now. But if you don't, coming up in our qualifying show, we've got the winners and losers of qualifying. Lance Stroll going beast mode on his own team. Yes, we do not like an angry Lance Stroll, do we? McLaren's bitter-sweet qualifying. There is some happiness there, if I'm honest. But Perez, oh, Perez again. Best car, oh, Perez. We'll get into him as well, and a full rundown of our qualifying results. But let's get into our winners and losers of qualifying. So we're going to take a total of 3 people. 3 winners or 3 losers. Could be a mixture, but let's get into it. And our first loser, we have just mentioned him. Yes, Sergio Perez, out of Q2 again, despite having, as Max Verstappen has showed us time and time again, the best car. Sergio Perez, the man who had an absolutely horrendous Japanese Grand Prix. Sergio Perez, the man who said he is going to make a difference. He's going to show us what he's made of in the Qatar Grand Prix. Sergio Perez, who... well, yeah, I think he, track limits, yes, but he was still a lot slower than his teammates. He's under pressure. He's put himself under more pressure. Tomorrow's a new day, though. So fingers crossed, Perez. We know you can do it, please. But Sergio Perez. And I think taking the trumps potentially from Sergio Perez is this man, Lance Stroll, as we said, absolutely going beast mode on his own team. And I mean beast mode in absolutely negative terms, more hulking out than anything, but by nearly a second slower than Fernando Alonso. This guy really is. I mean, if Aston Martin do not finish second in the championship and lose by, let's just say, a handful of points, this guy is going to be, one of the people to blame. Surely, oh, Lance Stroll, please have a good race tomorrow. We all want you to. Well, some people want you to. I'd like you to, though, Lance Stroll. But our winner, yep, there he is, the scariest looking George Russell. You've got. I mean, I've seen the Woody memes, but that's just horrendous, isn't it? But despite pressure coming out of Japan, he has outqualified Lewis Hamilton, and unlike Lando Norris, he did stay within those white lines. He did stay within the track limits. He starts second alongside Verstappen. There's our winners and losers for the Qatar Grand Prix. But let's get into... Let's get into Lance Stroll, shall we? I mean, oh, Lance Stroll. There he is. As we know, Lance Stroll was not a happy bunny. This is from planetf1.com. After that elimination, he went out of Q1. As we know, he's come under mounting pressure as this season has progressed. With Fernando Alonso, the 2005-2006 champion, he's pretty much done the majority of the Aston Martin work for their fight to retain P4 in the Constructors' Championship. This is a team, remember, that in the first third of the championship, they were pretty much P2. So as McLaren close in on Qatar, this would have been the perfect part. This would have been the perfect time for Lance Stroll to deliver. He did deliver to his own team, but he's furious after that Q&X. And following his return to the garage after that elimination, Stroll was seen pushing past his performance coach and osteopath Henry Howe, who had approached him as he exited the cockpit of the Aston Martin car. Howe then followed Stroll to the exit of the garage, where the cameras captured what Planet F1 has said, an aggressive outburst of some form, as him and the driver went through the door. It did look like he pushed him, really. And even Sky, even Sky Sports have got something on that. And he was being criticised for his behaviour after the Qatar Grand Prix qualifying. And absolutely, I mean, I don't know where the quote is, but I remember Naomi Schiff giving quite a nice quote on Sky TV. But as we know, he gave a short interview to F1 where he pretty much gave 6 words to 3 questions, underlying a disappointment. He did swear as well, and he just walked away. It almost seemed he walked away kind of like mid-interview, but what he did was give a really, really short answer, and then it was like, see you later. I mean, there we go. It's totally inappropriate. You cannot behave in that way, said Schiff in reference to Stroll. She said, no matter how disappointing your day has been, those are the people that work to get you on track, to make it happen for you. You can't be treating your team like that. And then she said, it's one thing to have a bad day, come out of the car and apologise, but to come out and act that way is just not good enough. As Lance Stroll's dad. But she went on to saying he's clearly distressed. We have to empathise because he's a human being. He's got emotions. He's going through something, but that doesn't make it okay. You have to act better. Now, as we know, Felipe Drugovich is in the wings, she says, and he would be more than grateful to be in that car and won't behave that way. And as we know, Fernando Alonso is 127 points ahead of Lance Stroll and has started every race inside the top 10, whereas the Canadian has only achieved that feat 6 times this season, despite at some point this season, at the beginning, having the second best car. Are him and Sergio Perez forming some kind of alliance? You've got to start to wonder, don't you? But Alonso is 15-2 ahead in the qualifying, and Lance Stroll. But from a slight bit of sadness, we've got a bit of happiness here, and kind of melancholy. This is from the official Formula One page. Now, Russell was delighted to qualify second, but Hamilton bemoans average outing despite P3, it says. So as we know, there are obviously mixed feelings in that Mercedes camp on Friday. George Russell stating he was pretty happy to qualify second. Lewis Hamilton labelling his qualifying as average, despite being lining up third for the race on Sunday. And that's because both McLarens got their times deleted. Poor old Oscar. But we'll get into that in a minute for both McLarens. But after completing a lap time of 1:24.2 around the circuit, Russell, he'd initially qualified third, but gained a place after Lando Norris in second had his time deleted. Now, whilst Russell was pleased with the result and to have his teammate lining up next to him on Sunday, he jokingly admitted that due to the sandy nature of the track, he would much prefer to swap positions with Hamilton. He said, I'm just very pleased with how the session went regardless, said Russell. When asked if he was surprised to be on the front row, he said, I was pretty happy with P3, to be honest, because this track is so sandy off the racing line. He went on to saying there's not much grip, so I think that P3 spot would have actually been a better position for the race. Nevertheless, we've got Lewis alongside me now, and we can be strategic and work together. He ended up saying, we've got our sights set on a strong result now as the McLarens are behind us. We're going to have a bit of a fight on our hands because they are really quick, but we've got 2 sleeps before we can think about that. So, well done. But when asked if he had any sense of the team's long run pace on Friday, he said, really bizarre. FP1 was really, really challenging. The grip was low. It was really, really windy. And he said, and we went out and qualifying. The wind dropped a little bit. The lap times, lap 1 was about 2.5 seconds quicker than the quickest in FP1. So it's going to be a totally different story on Sunday. We are going to have to learn on the job. But I think the sprint tomorrow will give us an indication. What's going to be interesting is that qualifying sprint is going to be around the same time that FP1 was, where Mercedes kind of seemed to struggle a bit. Now, Hamilton, though, he was provisionally second after the first runs in Q3, but a sudden snap in the first sector on his final attempt forced him off track and meant he had to abort his lap. A lot of people were doing that, including Verstappen. I think the Ferraris did it. He wound it up 5th, but he gained 2 places when those McLarens, white lines and McLarens, not really good today. So asked if he was satisfied with qualifying, Hamilton replied, not massively, but it's great for the team to be on the first 2 rows, second and third. I think it's great for the team. He said, difficult at the beginning of the session, but tricky conditions out there with the wind, but ultimately it was a pretty average session for me. But it was pretty average for Hamilton. Lando Norris, the guy that pretty much could have qualified second, potentially he could have been 2 to 3, a couple of tenths off pole position, some people are saying. Norris making mistakes. He's basically saying, all I did is make mistakes in Qatar qualifying. This is from motorsport.com by Philippe Clearen. I've probably got that name wrong. I'm sorry, Philippe. So Lando Norris said he's making mistakes. That's pretty much all he did. He went second in Q3, which proved to be the second fastest car, also through the high-speed corners behind Red Bull's dominant Max Verstappen. But the Briton immediately realised that he's not going to start there when he caught that slide in turn 10 and he went wide, and it was fairly obvious, I think, to everyone. The commentary team picked it up straight away that he went on the wrong side of that line. He crossed the line, so to speak. So Norris also lost his first and second laps, and therefore he dropped all the way down to 10th for the Grand Prix. And afterwards, he pretty much put his hands up when he spoke to Sky Sports F1, and he replied, Sky Sports F1 asked if his pace still left him encouraged for the remainder of the weekend. Apologies. And he said, I don't think like that. I just think of the job I'm meant to do today, which is put in good laps. Don't make mistakes. And that's all I did today. So not a good one for me. He went on to say that the team has done a good job. I just messed it up. I just had a correction of oversteer and went off. The slip-up briefly promoted his teammate Oscar Piastri from 4th to 3rd on the grid, but the Australian rookie also saw his best lap scrubbed, demoting him to 6th. Piastri felt the slippery track was the main factor behind a total of 22 qualifying times being taken off the board for track limit violations. So, that's going to go through the grid. But before we go look at the grid, yes, the other not very good stuff from qualifying. Oh, Sergio Perez. Naomi Schiff believes the pressure is really on Sergio Perez after the Red Bull driver's latest exit. Obviously, not failure, whatever you want to put there. Now, after a disastrous race in Japan, where he incurred 2 time penalties before suffering his first retirement of the season, he was eliminated in Q2. Now, the Mexican, he's failed to reach Q3 in 8. That's 8 of the 17 rounds. That's nearly half. Having gone 5 successive races without a top 10 start between Monaco and Silverstone earlier this season. So Perez's mid-season implosion, it says, has seen his seat alongside Max Verstappen come under severe scrutiny. Red Bull have insisted that the 33-year-old does have a contract for next year and he will not be moved on before the start of next season. However, Schiff fears a number of drivers will now be targeting Perez's seat. Obviously, it's the best car, isn't it? And she pointed out that his recovery drives on race day only happen because he qualifies so poorly. And he's got the best car. She said he makes up the places because he's got to the car that's supposed to be at the front to begin with. He's qualifying out of position most of the time. It's his own fault. And I think at this part of the season, he's really wanting to prove the team why he deserved that second seat at Red Bull. Because I can guarantee you there's so many drivers who are either in the paddock or are out of this paddock at the moment who would love to have a seat at Red Bull. She said Checo is not there for no reason and no driver is on the grid in Formula One for no reason. But he has been making a lot of mistakes and I think, for him, the pressure is really on. I think some of these mistakes also come from being under pressure and sometimes overdriving. I think he is the man most under pressure. As you can see here, you should be looking at, hopefully, for the video watchers, not necessarily the podcasters, but we're looking at the practice 1 times where Max Verstappen on a 1:27.4 went fastest. Sainz about 0.334 slower than Leclerc, and this was during the day. And this is where Mercedes, they didn't go out on the soft tyres like other people did. So George Russell ended up being 8th, 9/10 off, and Lewis Hamilton 13th, 1.2. Stroll was 14th, 1.2 seconds off, looking very, very average. And Sergio Perez was still over half a second slower than Max Verstappen. So no, didn't do bad in practice, about just shy of 0.6 off. And Nico Hülkenberg in the top 10. But when we go to qualifying, it's a slightly different story. Best lap was a 1:23.778. In practice 1, it was at 1:27. That's fairly significant, isn't it? Bearing in mind this is the same day where the track's ramping up. It is really dusty and sandy, and there are no support races to obviously help with the tarmac. But it's Max Verstappen getting another pole position, a 1:23.778. George Russell in second, still a good fair chunk behind old Max. Hamilton in third, just over a tenth. No, actually within a tenth of George Russell. He'd be disappointed in that, but like he said he is. Fernando Alonso in fourth. That's really important there for Aston Martin to start fourth. Leclerc in the lead. Ferrari. Sainz did absolutely terrible, didn't he? In fifth. Oscar Piastri would have been, I think, second. Would have been up there, second or third, but no, it didn't happen. He got his time deleted and he starts sixth. But it's better than Lando Norris because at least he did get a lap in, unlike Lando Norris, who had both of his times taken away. So Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon start 7th and 8th in the Alpines. Not bad, actually. That's really quite respectable for the Alpines. And But one of the men of the hour, if I mentioned George Russell was one of the winners, if we could have a honourable mention for another winner, that would be Valtteri Bottas in ninth. I mean, I know that was quite shocking, really, wasn't it? If I'm honest. But there, Lando Norris in 10th. Oh, Lando. Yuki Tsunoda in 11th, doing really, really well, showing he is the leader at AlphaTauri this weekend. Carlos Sainz disappointing in 12th. Sergio Perez very disappointing in 13th. Alex Albon 14th in the Williams. Nico Hulkenberg. They didn't do so well in the end, did they? The old Haas team, after looking fairly okay in practice. But Nico Hulkenberg 15th. 16th Logan Sargent. To be fair to Logan, he nearly outqualified Alex Albon. He nearly had, I don't want to say knocked out Alex Albon, but it looked like he may have a chance of finishing ahead of Alex Albon. So he did really, really good. Long may that continue. Lance Stroll, Lance, he needs a good race, doesn't he? I hope he gets his head down and does it, because the pressure is just going to mount. People are going to continue to say, Lance, not for you. Put somebody else in that team, like Leomi Schiff was saying. 18th is Liam Lawson. I don't want to say back to reality. Oops, there goes Lawson. No, it's kind of like a bit harsh, but it's fairly significant. He's 11th. Tsunoda is, and Liam Lawson's 18th. Having said that, he is the rookie. And let's be honest, if we're saying we're disappointed and he's 18th, then what a lot of people have suggested could be one of the worst cars. Yes, I know they've had the upgrade. Fair play to Liam Lawson. I think that's only shows what we expect of him, and I think we're all a bit disappointed of him in 18th. Kevin Magnussen in 19th, and Zhou at the back of the grid in 20th. That is essentially our qualifying grid for the Qatar Grand Prix, but tomorrow is a sprint weekend. We'll be with you after the sprint race with all the opinions, etc. So stay tuned. Once again, like and subscribe if you can. We've had a few more subscribers, a few more comments, a few more likes. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. If you made it to the end, let me know. You are an F1 champion in my eyes. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.